bag and sit down and watch back my live from earlier on and just take some time to just plur, just to really just trying to get my jacket off with one hand. So 2 secs, guys. This jacket's really annoying as well. Some of the pockets. Oh, 2 seconds. I'm going to have to use both of my hands. Um, oh, do you know what? I'm going to do what everybody else does in my house right now. I'm doing it. It's my turn. Here's it. It's my turn. Here's my coat. It's getting thrown on the floor. Here's my boots. Getting thrown on the floor. Another boot thrown on the floor. There we go. I get to behave like Dean and Elijah. Shiloh, not so much a problem. Dean and Elijah, when they come in this house, the first thing they do is they throw their bloody coat and their shoes down. So, fuck it. I am throwing my coat and the shoes down, and I'm going to sit here and talk to you guys for a minute. And then I'm going to have to plough through this space and place. The only thing is, I don't know how other people feel about this stuff, because I don't know how many people actually talk about the inner workings and frameworks of their own mind. And it's only sort of in the last sort of couple of years that we've really been honing in on labels such as narcissism, psychopathy, all of these things. And there are a lot of lay people out there talking about things in ways because they were a victim of something and want to warn other people. Now, the challenge with that is until you have actually overcome trauma or overcome what situation you've been in, or you have had some form of understanding of what's going on, is very, 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 very difficult for many people, especially if you've been through a relationship, especially if you've been through a broken relationship, especially if the relationship that you had left you with a lot of trauma. And this, I'm not even just talking about marriage relationships. I'm not even talking about just normal relationships. I'm talking about all relationships, whether it's a mother-daughter, mother-son, father-daughter, father-son, the teacher, the school, the bank, the butcher, the person down the road. When I first ever got into coaching, and I think it was back in, I've always been into coaching in terms of like netball, football, sports coaching. I've always been a coach. I've always been a sports coach. I've been a sports coach my whole life. Not obviously practicing because my physical body doesn't work to the level of somebody that would participate. This is the problem and why I would be classed as disabled, because my physical body causes me to not be able to do the things that I really love and enjoy, and that is really fucking annoying. It's frustrating. It's it's painful. Sometimes the fear of pain is worse than the pain itself, especially for somebody like me. You can put this into any situation. Say you've been in a car crash. To get in a car after a car crash is difficult. If you've fallen off a horse, to get back on a horse can be really difficult. To If you've had a bike accident, getting back on a bike can be really difficult. If you had a really traumatic relationship that in this world we call domestic violence, it could be really difficult to get into a relationship. If your mother or father have let you down or lied to you, it could be really difficult to rebuild that bond. People don't even realise that when children finally find out that Father Christmas, I don't want to say is not real, because he is in some way. I believe in fairies. I really, 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 really don't want to actually take away this moment from me as an individual and actually say the words that Father Christmas is not real, because this is really difficult. You can all sit there and go, she really is mad, isn't she? But look at the smile on my my face. Look at the smile on my face when I think of things that are, how do you say the word magic without then not accepting that some people obviously practice magic? In terms of magic, how do you practice magic? You practice magic in the way that we as children used to watch the illusions with the magic trick. My actual memory of watching the magician at the village hall was not actually watching the magician. It was the embarrassment and humiliation and how everybody treated me as a not as a baby, but as an older child who had wet herself on her chair while watching the magic show. And everybody was so annoyed at me, like really annoyed at me. And and the more I talk about this, the more I can go into this experience and even remember the birthday party. I know exactly where this village hall was. It was Headley Down Village Hall. You drive from where my junior school was and come, there's Heatherlands down the state where I grew up. And there was a spa across the road, and we had a church, and then there was a big church, and then the village hall. I think this is where I'm going to go and live for a bit. I've decided I need to go here for a bit. I'm going to go back to my roots. I'm going to come and show you where I was born and where I went from. So let's get this car on the road and we'll go for a drive and I'll show you. But anyway, in this village hall, I can remember very clearly the really long table and us all sitting down in the birthday party. I can remember whose birthday party it was. It was Carla Walker's birthday party. I can remember who the people were around me as well. And I can even actually, as I'm even talking to you now, even smell the wood from in this village hall. Do any of you ever remember, if you're sort of my age, I don't know if you remember that when you used to do activities like dance or any performance or any shows that used to be put on, they were always in the church village hall. Where I lived and grew up from sort of the ages of 3 to 11, we had our own community little church that had the village hall. And then where I went to Headley Down Juniors, it became a primary school afterwards, but it's Headley Down Juniors. I think it's an antiques place now. I'm going to go and see if Miss Deegan's still. If anyone here is, please, if you're, I do know that on my lives, I went through my Facebook the other day and I actually looked to see who's following me, and I don't usually do this. And I was actually quite amazed to see how many people from my infants and juniors and high schools, and I went to about 5 high schools, on how many people were actually following my live streams from my younger days before my dad sat me in the playing field in Borden near Milchase School and told me that we were not going back to Headley Down again, and we were not going back to Falling Crescent where I had grown up. And we were going to my nan's in Borden, which was my dad's mum and dad. My granddad was a gurner. My granddad was one of these gurners that used to take his teeth out, and spent his time at Borden Workingsmen's Club. I don't think I've ever known my granddad sober, ever. I think he was as sober to me as he was sober, but I know and always know that my granddad either had a drink with him down at the club, and he would literally get up in the morning and walk down to the club and sit at the club until closing time and come home, and he'd have a drink at home. And I used to eat his rennies. I used to love them little chalky rennies and steal his rennies off of my nan's brown unit. And then she used to have one of them units where she used to have all of the family photographs, and it's centered from my granddad and my nan, and I think it's John and Millie. So my nan was called Millie, and my granddad was called John. I think he was called John. His granddad, I don't I don't even remember anybody else ever calling my nan and granddad by any of their names. It was only when I used to deal with all the insurance policies, and I used to deal with all of my family's insurance policies. I was the runner. I was the one that even actually used to help sign signatures for people that couldn't actually write or read. I was the one that used to read the letters. Yeah, I was. My dad went to, because obviously, as you know, my mum was very young when she fell pregnant. She fell pregnant when she was 15. My dad was old enough to have a motorbike, but he'd basically gone through like a Borstal. So he would have been considered dyslexic. Um, and he has the dots that Dean has on his knuckles. Both Dean and my dad have the same tattoo on their knuckles. That's probably how me and Dean got together. It was seeing them dots on Dean's knuckles that I guess made me feel safe-ish or curious. But yeah, but then as you know, that my granddad grew up in Borden um, because his mother was a maid for Sir Lord Pierce's family home, who, if the correct Sir Lord Pierce, then it was the one who was the head of the Justice Privy thing. And obviously was paid shillings to fuck off to Brighton. So that would have been London. And so my grandmother would have been working in London and was paid, I know it was something like 2 shillings or something like that a week or something like that, to 8 shillings or something like that. She just bugger off. She went to Brighton and raised my granddad in Brighton. And then my granddad joined the fairgrounds, I think. And then obviously, you know, was married to my nan. I don't really know how that happens. This is the problem with families. It's like, if you've got a really shallow family, like, and you've got shallow intimacy, you can talk about narcissism and you can talk about things like that as much as you like, but you've got to go through narcissism, because if you treat people the way that the system says you should treat people who are narcissists, then actually you're double blinding, abusing somebody, because it's very difficult for us as individuals. Like, okay, so whoever's watching this right now, you're making a perception of me. You're making a judgment. You're either listening to what I'm saying, you're either intrigued in what I'm saying, or you're watching to see whether I fuck up. There's people that actually watch me with the intentions to do harm to me. There's people who watch me with intentions to go, what I'll do next. There's people who watch me because they don't have anything better to do. There's people who watch me because they genuinely want to see me come out the other side of what's happened to me and move through my trauma and have my breakthroughs. And then there's people who get hope. Now, the challenge with hope, a mustard seed of hope, is a very dangerous thing to the society that we live in at the moment. We as a UK structure, I can't talk about any other country right now, because the way that the positioning of the game of chess exists with kings and queens is is um, is difficult for me to talk to, because um, I don't know either your title. My title. What is my title? My title. A title. Title. If I was going on Google right now, what is a title? A title is a heading, isn't it? It is a name. So my title would be, let me get this right, it would be the Miss, Mrs. and Mr. Now, here's the thing. My title is actually a Ms, because I'm a divorcee. I'm not a Miss. And I've talked about this for quite, well, I haven't talked about it. I've talked about this in conversations with my own mind. I don't know if any of you do it, but we all do it. Some people want to say, oh, she talks herself. Well, yeah, of course we talk to ourselves. It's called having inner dialogue. And if you don't have inner dialogue, then it's very difficult to make decisions, because you can't, based on clarity. How are we going to carry on? Okay. Do you know how we're going to carry on? We're going to carry on with every step and every second and every breath that we take in gratitude, because today we didn't die. Yesterday, we didn't die. We're still here. The reason that every single one of us here is now you've just changed me, but how keep going on. What is the title of my video? What is the title of my video? I can't remember. What did I put up as my title of my video? Let me have a look. What did I put up as my title of my video? Do you know what? Let me just say something about the titles of my video. As you all know, I've struggled with technology. So I've got another little laptop here at the moment that is connected up to a keyboard because I was sold this one. Someone's trying to say I was trying to scam them. You're a fucking arseholes. If I was trying to scam you, would I really break the keys and stick a freaking laptop in? No, the keys don't bloody work. And like the woman said, she did a whole degree on it. She's probably hammering the keys out of it. So why would it not? And that's all she's used it for. That's the challenge that I have. So, and then obviously on the keys on here. And sometimes it's really difficult for me to get a signal. And you have to put a title in to be able to continue. And sometimes when I write my titles may be something that I'm perceiving outside. And then one of the reasons why I actually do live is because, one, I spend a lot of time alone. I have my children, but my children don't give me the level of stimulation in conversation that somebody of a 30, 40, 42-year-old needs. My children is much, but we have conversations. I have wonderful conversations in terms of soul and spirit with my children. In fact, particularly more with Elijah, is very wise. But as you will all know, you spend a lot of time in the child's perception of the world, and you have to keep that child in that perception of that world. And just read what somebody was saying. No, please do. I actually do like it when people interact. What I don't like when people interact is, and this is, when we're in a conversation with other people, it's not actually often we get to that pause moment. Do you know what I mean? Because, one, if you go to see a GP about anything going on, you've got a 5-minute appointment, 10 if you book, it might run over sides. If you go to counselling, now, we are actually trained as therapists to position you so we can see the clock behind you immediately. So, which is one, very annoying because sometimes you can hear the tick, 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 tick as somebody on the other side of it, which is something that the counsellor wouldn't actually understand, this distraction in your head, because she's not the person sitting proceeding behind the clock. A counsellor is not allowed to clock watch. A counsellor is not allowed to check their phone. They're not allowed to look down at the side. They have to constantly give you, I'm talking about a counsellor, psychologists do this as well, psychotherapists do this, they all do this. Why do they do this? Because they're paid by the hour. Within everything in terms of the hour, such as carers, if somebody, say like me, gets 1 hour of care, say my exercise time was 1 hour, as government has says we get 1 hour a day to exercise. Well, fuck you, Boris Johnson, because I have to zip in and zip up every hour. I got to do my pelvic floors, honey. Oh, Boris Johnson, you can't make decisions for me, because you can't zip in and zip up. Ow! Only women are going to understand that, honey. Yeah, unless you zip and zip up and have to do that every hour while crunching them in, because we've had to push your big freaking heads out of our pelvis, honey. And it means we got leaky bladders by a certain point. Honey, you can't schedule your male masculine energy around me. I was the wifey, not a husband. So, anyway, at the end of the day, in that level of communication that we have with somebody, probably one of the reasons that when I used to do my lives on a night time, and it was sort of like I didn't really live all the way through the day, and I would just literally at the end of the day just come on and just go bleh. It would sort of be about 40 minutes to an hour. One, my vocal cord here doesn't last that long. I start coughing, spluttering. Anyone who watches my lives will know that sometimes I get a bit of a gruff voice. It's because I'm dealing with all of this in here. So it's actually set up. So all of this in here. So hang on, I might actually pull my shoulder out if I do this, because if I show you something in here. So show you EDS, shall I? ready? You want to watch me pop my shoulder? So to the people out there that say EDS, there you go. Ooh, I can probably do even more to it. I might have to loosen that up a bit in a minute. But basically, you can't feel how I feel. And I can't feel how you feel. Because I'm not you and you are not me. But we live in this planet where there are, what, 7 billion people? 9 billion? 7 billion? Well, according to COVID, we should be dropping down quite dramatically during this depopulation time, whether it be conspiracy according to government, the media, people are dying on a rapid race, which means that we should be going down from, say, 7 billion people around the world. So I would assume that that would mean, say, people who are not colonized, so tribal people who are living in Native America and places like that, that don't have hospitals and doctors, which they can access, but they'd have to have health insurance to do so. People who are really living in line. So, right in front of me, there we go. So, obviously you've got sort of the Buddhist practices sort of here, and then down here, this is actually Cambodia. Shall I show you Cambodia? Let me go and show you. Oh, let me show you Cambodia a minute. Hang on. So basically, ow, shit, my back. So this is obviously the main palaces at Cambodia. So I can't talk about, I don't walk around in this lifestyle. I have never had to carry my water on my head or my bowls, but I do play drums. There she is. So basically, I talk about us being physical beings and spiritual beings. But the challenge goes on in the mind at the end of the day, doesn't it? And the communication goes on. And I talk about this because of trauma and also because of social services. And what's been interesting is I've been dealing with somebody who's been intercepting emails between me and my mum. And she infuriated me the other day because she showed me what she was sending to my mum. And it's like, hang on a minute, you're worse than a social worker. So basically, from that entire conversation that we've had, that's what you're going to communicate to my mother. It was like, do you understand what that is going to do to my mother? And and it's like, and it annoys me because it's like, say you're I don't know. Okay, say you're a wife who rings a husband and gets the PA. Now, not a lot of people in this network will be the sort of people that have husbands that, you know, will go and buy your boots, 350 quid boots, just take you shopping and go which colours. You know, there's not a lot of people that have ever had that sort of financial security in their marriages and relationships. But in that life and in that world, wow, see, here we go. Right, my head is now pulling off into tangents now, and this is where it gets very difficult for somebody like me. And I will then get a little bit of a headache that comes all the way around here and goes off down here. Now, us as physical bodies, spiritual bodies, have to be holistic. And the problem with being in something like the multi-agency framework is because they take the power away from the person and they place it to the person who is a chair, who then goes around the room, and they have to be gathering decisions on people, on how they're living their lives, based on an opinion of somebody who spends time with somebody. So basically, take I couldn't come back to you then. My housing officer just rang, so I don't know if this is actually coming back onto my live. So I'll bugger off quickly and just apologise if it comes back now that it was actually my housing officer. But it's a very oh. Sorry, just dropped my phone. Yeah, it was my housing officer who's kicking off with Universal Credits for the amount of money they're taking off of me, which is causing me this craziness for this last week. And the fact that they haven't been paying my rent, they're still paying it to the old place and not this place, which he's still having to hold the computers off for kicking an eviction off me. But I've been telling people this is what was going to be happening. So I'm in the middle of it at the moment. So anyway, I'll catch you later. Bye. Oh, no, I won't catch you later. I just apologise. So obviously, someone's just come on. My housing officer just rang. Do you know what I love about him? I don't know whether I think he's West African. So when he's got incompetence going on, he gets really ratty with people. So he's got a really great attitude. So he just said to me, it's like, I'm not having this, and don't worry about it. On the 18th, if they not do it, I'll be getting back onto them now because this is just wrong. And I'm sitting in these meetings watching you being penalised for stuff, and I can see it's not your fault, and I'm going to help you. So that was really lovely. But basically, I just want to be out of this system because it's just too many people, and I just want my relationships. I just want my family and my friends, and just to get on with my life. And it is so fucking draining having to deal with housing officers and benefit officers and social workers and teachers and all of these different people and all of these different people and receptionists and even sometimes you guys. Just want them